Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Breaking news from the White House already today. President Trump has named the man he will nominate to be the next director of the FBI. This as we kick off a critical 48 hours on Capitol Hill, concluding with testimony from the fired FBI director, James Comey. So hang on. Here we go. I'm Bill Hemmer. Welcome here to America's Newsroom. How you doing, Shannon?
Happy Wednesday. We're halfway there. I'm Shannon Bream. So President Trump intends to nominate Christopher Wray, a former DOJ official, to be the next FBI director. The announcement comes just one day before former FBI Director James Comey testifies to Congress. Meanwhile, we are awaiting the start of a Senate hearing today that will feature the heads of 4 intelligence agencies. We expect plenty of questions on Russia, hacking, and leaks.
Also, we have Team Fox coverage for you today. Catherine Herridge inside that hearing room on the Hill. Chris Direwald standing by for analysis. But we begin with Doug McElway from the White House there. And what can we report, Doug, about the president's nominee to be the next FBI director?
Well, Bill, the announcement came by the president's preferred means of communication, Twitter, at 7:45 this morning, at which point he tweeted, "I will be nominating Christopher A. Wray, a man of impeccable credentials, to be the new director of the FBI. Details to follow." Christopher Asher Wray is his name. He is a partner in the law firm of King and Spalding, where he specializes in white-collar crime. He's a relatively young man, having graduated from Yale University in 1989 and Yale Law School in 1992. And in 1997, he joined the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Northern District of Georgia. In 2001, he was appointed by President George W. Bush to be Associate Attorney General under Attorney General John Ashcroft. There, he spearheaded the prosecution of HealthSouth's former CEO Richard Scrushy, the first CEO to be tried under the Sarbanes-Oxley Act. Here is Christopher Wray talking about that case in November of 2003.
Scrushy and his accomplices lied. They cooked HealthSouth's books and filed false financial statements with the SEC.
She was later acquitted of all charges in that case. Wray obviously has broad experience in both private practice and in the Department of Justice, yet he has no experience in the FBI, which some obviously might consider to be a liability. His law firm of King and Spalding has law offices literally all over the world, including Moscow, which no doubt will come up in his confirmation hearing, which has yet to be set.
Good
Bill,
deal,
Shannon.
Doug. Thank you with the groundwork from the White House. Thank you, Doug.
Yep.
Shannon.
You bet.
And ahead of that hearing tomorrow with Comey, Senate Intelligence Committee, well, they're going to hear other folks here today on the Hill. It's set to begin in just under an hour. Headlining today's testimony, the heads of 4 intelligence agencies. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge is live now inside the hearing room as the expectations build. What do we expect this morning, Catherine?
Well, thank you, Shannon, and good morning. The expectation based on our reporting here at Fox News is that the witnesses will be pressed by the senators on their interactions with President Trump and whether there was any effort to interfere with or downplay the FBI's counterintelligence investigation into Russia's election meddling last year. By example, the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats, who oversees the 17 intelligence agencies, was there an effort by the president, as reported by the Washington Post in March of this year, to go to Coats and try and enlist his help to get him to go to then FBI Director James Comey to back off the ongoing investigation of former National Security Advisor Mike Flynn. In response to the Washington Post report, the Director of National Intelligence, his spokesman, has put out a statement and given it to Fox News. It reads, in part, Director Coats does not discuss his private conversations with the president. However, he has never felt pressured by the president or anyone else in the administration to influence any intelligence matters or ongoing investigations. A key issue for Republicans on the panel today will be the issue of unmasking of American citizens in coded intelligence reporting and whether it was inappropriately done in the case of the Trump campaign team. A House Intelligence Committee has already issued subpoenas for records that relate to the unmasking by the former National Security Advisor Susan Rice, former CIA Director John Brennan, as well as former UN Ambassador Samantha Power. The question for Republicans is whether this unmasking was done for political reasons or for true national security imperatives. Shannon.
Yeah, the two parties may have two very different directives today. We shall see. Catherine, we know you're on it. Thank you.
You're welcome. On this, here's Chris Direwald for analysis. And Chris, good morning to you. I want to be clear about this now, okay? The hearing is about the FISA court. Right. And some Republicans might ask about the revealing of names by using reverse surveillance, which is a big topic in Washington now. Right. Democrats yesterday, they made it clear they will ask about Russia and Comey. So how or what should viewers listen to, or what should they listen for today, Chris?
Well, it all depends on which side of the program you're reading from. Like you said, Democrats are going to be popping popcorn when they think about what Dan Coats is going to say. And Dan Coats, of course, a former senator who it was a late addition to Trump world, a colleague, a revered mentor for Vice President Mike Pence, comes onto this team. The reports are that he told aides, told people around him after a meeting with the president, that the president urged him to get Comey to back off the Russia case. Now, the statement that he put out doesn't say that didn't happen. The statement that he put out that Catherine just read said he didn't feel pressured. And that's basically what Comey has said, which is, or the reports on what Comey have said reveal, which is, yeah, he asked me, but I didn't feel pressured. It didn't change a thing. So there's a difference between an inappropriate conversation and a conversation that is obstructive in nature. So that's going to be the word games that are playing out here for the Democrats.
Okay, now, I don't know. You want to call today the pregame? I mean, we really don't know, because once these hearings get underway, who knows in which direction they go. But when James Comey appears tomorrow, the president was asked about it yesterday. Quick comment from him from the White House yesterday.
What message do you have to Jim Comey ahead of his testimony?
I wish him luck. Thank you, everybody.
Pretty simple. 4 words there. I wish him luck. Is it possible the White House will be in immediate response mode to Comey's testimony in real time tomorrow? Will that happen, do you believe?
Do you remember when General Petraeus was going to testify on Capitol Hill, and the Move On or somebody ran an ad, General Betray Us, and attacking him from the outside? That's the last time that I can remember a hearing, any testimony that got this much of the political space ginned up. The White House is going to be savagely attacking Comey. The outside group that supports the super PAC that supports the president is going to be savaging Comey in ads. The whole idea here for Republicans is to destroy James Comey's character, because they're afraid of what he might say, so they want to just ruin him. And so they will probably try today, in part, somebody's going to try today in part, to assassinate Comey's character, so that when he gets there tomorrow, they'll say, yeah, we know all about you, buddy.
Okay. Quickly, do I have time for this? Kellyanne Conway was asked this morning. There's a report in Washington that Jeff Sessions offered his resignation. Apparently not formally, but I guess verbally, perhaps. That's what I take from the reporting. This is how she addressed that today.
Attorney General Sessions was a very, very important part of the campaign and the transition to the president. He endorsed him early. He flew with him frequently. He gave great advice. He's known as somebody who gets things done. He's a very close ally of the president's.
No question about that. And no question about this. The president thought his recusal on Russia was a big, fat mistake. Last comment on that.
Well, I mean, obviously, the president wanted to embarrass Attorney General Sessions and make him look bad and feel bad. He probably accomplished that. But in the end, the reason that there is a special counsel in this case is because the president bragged about firing Comey over Russia, and that's what did him in.
Stand by. 50 minutes away. Thank you, Chris. Chris Stirewalt analysis there in Washington, D.C. That could be a very important day today. And we expect, the testimony and the questions, and oftentimes the most interesting aspect of these hearings are how the questions are asked. So we'll see which way they go, both sides, right?
And don't think there hasn't been a lot of strategizing ahead
little bit,
of this.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a little bit of the playbook from the Democrats and what they plan to ask about it. Actual senators assigned parts of the questioning. I'm sure the GOP is doing the exact same.
10 a.m. Eastern time. We'll take you live inside that room. Don't go anywhere. Stand by.
We've got a Fox News alert. ISIS claiming responsibility for a pair of terror attacks rocking Iran's capital, Tehran. Gunmen and suicide bombers hitting Iran's parliament and also the shrine of Ayatollah Khomeini. Iranian state media reporting at least 12 people are dead, still unclear if the attackers are included in that number. Dozens more are wounded. The siege inside parliament went on for hours before Iranian officials say the 4 gunmen were killed. The attack marking the first time we believe that ISIS has claimed responsibility for any attack within Iran. We'll have much more on that coming up in just minutes.
So rare. ISIS is trying to tell the world they can hit anywhere at any time, as we saw yesterday in Paris.
There is no
and
hiding.
London over the weekend. You're right. More coming coming up on that. Also, other big stories today, new details on the charged NSA leaker reality winner. That is her name. The trail of clues she left behind as her parents speak out on that. Plus, there's this from last night. Check it out.
The Democratic Party is sinking, and I mean that sincerely. They don't have a message. They don't have leadership, so they obstruct. And it's really the worst of the worst.
President Trump's son, Eric, teeing off on Democrats, saying they'd rather see his father fail than to have America succeed. So is this obstructionism exceptional, or is it just what minority parties do? Our panel will debate fair and balanced.
He had a lot to say, didn't he? Bombshell report on the botched gun-running operation linked to the murder of patrol agent Brian Terry. Claims that the Obama administration knowingly concealed information on Fast and Furious. A live report on what we are learning about that so many years later.
There's something that they don't want us to know, and there's something to hide.
I think they're hiding something. I think they're lying and they're hiding it. I said they're lying. Oh yeah, big time. Big time. They're passing the buck.
We are learning more about the clues that put federal investigators onto the trail of accused NSA leaker reality winner so quickly. Court documents show investigators learned she was one of only 6 people who printed out those top secret materials in question. They also discovered she'd emailed the news outlet from her personal email, but had used her work computer to do it. And that the printer also held other clues, micro dots that contain the serial number as well as when the document was printed. Winner's parents are now speaking out about her arrest, concerned that she's not going to get treated fairly.
If she did what she's being accused of, I know that she's ready to pay the price. I know that she's going to do whatever she needs to do to pay that price. I'm terrified for her right now because of the news, the climate, the social media. I'm terrified that she is not going to be treated fairly.
Winner could face up to 10 years in jail. She is charged with removing classified material from a secure facility. She's due in court tomorrow.
I've never seen hatred like this. I mean, to me, they're not even people. It's so sad. I mean, morality's just gone. You see the Democratic Party, they're imploding. They're imploding. They have no message. You see the head of the DNC, who was a total whack job. There's no leadership there. And so what do? They become obstructionists because they have no message of their own.
Trump came out blazing last night with Sean Hannity. Brad Blakeman, former deputy assistant to President George W. Bush, and Richard Fowler, radio talk show host and a Fox News contributor. And gentlemen, good day to both of you. Wanted to get to this topic before this hearing begins. Brad, he was firing on all cylinders. Does he have a point? Some of the criticism, morality is gone. I've never seen hatred like this before. Democrats are imploding. Start there.
Eric is right. Eric is right, and it's so sad. Democrats, from the time Donald Trump was elected president, embarked on a vicious campaign of personal destruction and legislative obstruction. But the way we get back at them as Republicans is we legislate, is we pass bills, we honor promises. That'll make the Democrats apoplectic. And if we do a good job, we hit them again at the ballot box by being successful, by winning elections. That's how we're going to get back at Democrats. We have power, and now we have to use it wisely, and we have to do what we said we were going to do.
Very interesting point. Let me come back to that. Richard, first, your reaction to Eric Trump's comments.
And this is what you call history repeating itself. It was 8 years ago, almost to the day, that Mitch McConnell said he has one goal: to make sure President Obama fails, which is the same thing that Eric is complaining about. There's no question that Washington's broken, but let's be very clear. The reason why Donald Trump's agenda isn't getting through has nothing to do with Democrats. Think about it. The Accessible Health Care Act that the House passed can pass the Senate today. The Republicans have 52 votes and the vice president. That has nothing to do with Democrats. Donald Trump wants to get tax reform done.
They may get to that at some point, but just keep it on Eric Trump's comments for the moment. The media has been giving this administration a really tough road. I mean, you just look at those briefings every afternoon. I think we can all, just based on history, agree that it's really never been this tough or critical before. All three of us can say yes on that, correct?
For sure.
I mean,
absolutely.
Right? Okay, so here is more of Trump's point last night. Listen here.
You see how he's treated when he goes over to the Middle East versus Obama when he came off Air Force One. They wouldn't even bring a set of stairs up to the plane. That's how little respect they had for this nation. And honestly, it scares the other side, Sean. It scares the other party.
The point he's making is that there's a double standard, Richard, with this president, his father.
I don't see a double standard here at all. Here's the reason why the press is covering Trump the way they are. It's because he won't stop tweeting. Laura Ingraham said yesterday, just on Fox and Friends, the same thing. His tweeting doesn't help him because the media and the press corps go in and they ask questions about what the president has tweeted, and the White House has no answers to it, right? Not to mention the fact that after we pulled out the Paris Accords last week, we saw Europe give America a big backhand. When Angela Merkel says, all we have is ourselves, Europe, we can't depend on America, that's problematic, and that's embarrassing.
Than what you said. One more comment from Eric Trump, and then Brad will get you to weigh in on this. Watch.
We need to bring some principle back. We have to bring some manners back. We need to bring some respect back. They would rather see him fail than have America succeed. And I've said that a million times, and I really believe it. That's the ugliness of Washington, D.C.
He's seen it firsthand. They would rather see America fail than Donald Trump succeed. Brad.
Sad but true. Democrats have no appetite for working with this president. Everything's dead on arrival. But guess what? We don't need Democrats. We have a majority in the House and the Senate. If necessary, we'll change the rules further in the Senate to get our bills through. But now is a time for action. And if Democrats don't want to work with us, that's fine. Let's get the business done for the people.
Brad's right.
What about the respect and the manners that he commented on, Richard? Have we let that run away from us?
Two points here. I mean, Donald Trump, while he was on the campaign trail, was bully in chief, and now he's commander in chief, right? But Brad is right in that Republicans have huge majorities in the House. They have a majority in the Senate. They really don't need Democrats to get anything done. So you can't blame us for the fact that the president's agenda is not getting done. You've got to blame the Freedom Caucus. You've got to blame Paul Ryan. You've got to blame Mitch McConnell before.
Richard,
no, you just said you were right.
No,
you just said that you guys have the majority.
A little too early for all that volume.
We're not jamming things through. We're not jamming things through.
You're right.
We're using regular order, something that Democrats hadn't done in 8 years.
You can't jam things through because President Trump has no control of the House conference, and he has no control of the Senate.
He's not going to jam bills
Just to be clear, Eric Trump said they would rather see him fail than America succeed. Just want to get that right. Pretty much saying the same thing, but I want to be clear on that.
Right.
Gentlemen, thank you.
Good to be here.
Richard, thanks. Shannon.
Well, we are getting stunning new video of the moment officers were attacked at Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, sending hundreds of people running for their lives. And we're getting new details about the man responsible for that attack.
Also, amid all these global terror strikes, U.S.-led forces move on to crush ISIS in the stronghold of Raqqa, Syria. Adam Kinzinger joins us in a moment to talk about the strategy and why the Pentagon says why Raqqa and these European attacks are all connected day after day.
The force that's going to go in and take Raqqa is mostly Kurds. They're not going to be able to hold that area. We need to come up with more Arabs.
We now have video of the moment officers in Paris came under attack, and this is rare to see, and it is graphic. Left of your screen, a man with a hammer swinging and injuring an officer before he was shot on sight. He was not on a watch list. He did survive. But after searching his home, police found a pledge of allegiance to ISIS, hundreds fleeing the famous Notre Dame Cathedral. And that image, too, inside the church is a stunning sight to see. Everybody sit where you are, stay where you are, hands in the air. We should not be living this way. And we saw it play out yesterday when we were on the air and the news came in from Notre Dame. So
yeah, and to see people's
again.
social media and be able to immediately feed out those pictures in that video for us to have a sense of what they're going through. And man, that attack and police neutralizing him, you realize what they're trained for because it happened so quickly.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point.
Well, ISIS is claiming responsibility for 2 deadly bombings in Tehran. At least 12 people were killed, dozens of others injured, marking the first attack claimed by ISIS in the Islamic Republic. And in the middle of all these terror strikes around the world, U.S.-led forces moved to crush ISIS in its stronghold. Pentagon spokesman says he believes the Europe attacks were planned in Raqqa, Syria, where they're now cracking down. For more, let's bring in Adam Kinzinger, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and a pilot for the Air National Guard. Good to see you this morning.
You too. Thanks.
What do you make of these attacks in Iran? Because it really seems to highlight the sectarian divide, and we believe it's a first.
Yes, this is opening up a new front for ISIS. We like to think look, we're competitors, we're enemies with Iran, we're enemies with ISIS. Therefore, it's weird to us that ISIS would attack Iran because we kind of think in an American-centric way. The reality is Iran is a Shia population. ISIS is predominantly Sunni. And what you have right now is, as ISIS is losing territory, so keep in mind, they can recruit people based on this idea of the coming prophesied next caliphate. And as ISIS was growing, it's really easy to convince somebody that believes this, that this is in fact that caliphate, come join. Well, now that ISIS is losing territory, it's really hard to convince somebody that you are the foretold caliphate when in fact you're getting your backside kicked in. And so they're opening up these fronts in Europe and elsewhere in order to try to recruit more people. It's lashing out. And I think this is when the president and the United States of America and our allies need to double down and realize that it's in this moment that we redouble our efforts to destroy this organization. But it's a longer-term fight than just this immediate fight, too.
Yeah, and right now it seems that the efforts are centered on Raqqa. We know that's been the de facto capital for ISIS. The U.S. envoy in that area, Brett McGurk, says that basically people have to be prepared for the fact that this is going to be a difficult, very long-term battle. You talked about the fact that you could try to annihilate one of these groups, whether it's ISIS or Al-Qaeda. We see any number of iterations, sure, but something else will pop up. As you've said, it's more about the ideology, because you can change the names of these groups, but the underlying ideology.
Yeah, that's it. You have to defeat the ideology. You're not going to defeat the ideology with an M4 or a 500-pound bomb. You're going to do it, A, from within Islam. Just like in the Cold War, it took us 50 years for the next generations to come along and overthrow the Iron Curtain by saying they want the freedom that we had. So you're going to do it that way. And you also have to make sure that the 7- and 8-year-olds in refugee camps right now, the displaced kids, if they're denied the ability to learn to read and write, or education, or opportunity, or hope, they're fertile recruiting ground for that next generation of ISIS or Al-Qaeda. So just as important as taking this fight to ISIS and liberating territory is, and it's really important and the president's doing a good job of it, we have to continue to do our best to invest in that next generation of kids in the Middle East, because if we don't do it with our allies, frankly, it's not going to happen, and we're going to fight these people in 5 or 6 years, unfortunately.
Yeah, and obviously one of the toughest psychological impacts are the civilian casualties that are bound to happen in these cases. And we have reports out of Raqqa that ISIS is threatening anybody who tries to leave, because we're trying to, and coalition forces trying to warn civilians, you need to get out. And we now have reports that ISIS is holding public executions of families that try to leave. We have to remember what kind of people we're dealing with.
You're dealing with very demonic people, and I guarantee the devil and his demons are hanging around enjoying what's happening over there. This is very tragic. This is why, again, we have to redouble our efforts. But I think the American people need to know that in this coming fight in Raqqa, you're going to hear about a lot of civilian casualties, and it's not because we're being reckless. It's because ISIS is threatening to kill anybody that leaves, because they want to use them as bargaining chips and put them in houses and near targets, so that if they're struck, they can say, oh, look at all these civilian casualties. This is an evil group that has to be crushed, and thankfully the men and women of the United States military are well poised to do it, and the best trained in the history of the world.
Yes, they are. We thank you that you are one of them and serving in multiple capacities in Washington and beyond. Congressman, good to see you.
You too. Thank you.
So we now know President Trump has made his choice for who he wants to lead the FBI. Critical 48 hours unfolding on Capitol Hill 30 minutes from now, concluding with testimony from the fired FBI Director James Comey. Former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee has a lot of thoughts on all of this. We'll talk in a moment live here.
Plus, a stunning new report on how the Obama administration handled the Fast and Furious gun scandal, with new claims that DOJ officials covered up key information connected to that scandal. So could the family of murdered border agent Brian Terry finally get the answers they have been fighting for?
I think if the holder knew about it, the president knew about it. And I think anybody should be prosecuted for his death.
Fox News alert on our top story. President Donald Trump announcing he intends to nominate Christopher Wray to be the next director of the FBI comes just a day before former FBI Director James Comey will testify publicly for the first time since his firing. We are also today awaiting the start of a major Senate hearing. A group of top intel agency leaders, as well as Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, will testify on Russia, leaks, and former FBI Director Comey. Joining me now, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, a Fox News contributor. Good to see you this morning, Governor.
Good morning. Good to
All
be
right.
with you, Shannon.
As we're going to hear from the current Director of National Intelligence, I want to play something we heard not long ago from the former DNI and get your reaction. This is former DNI James Clapper.
Yeah, I have to say, though, that I think, compare the two, that Watergate pales really, in my view, as compared to what we're confronting now.
Talking there about Russia and its interference in our election, the now investigation. Do you think Watergate is a fair parallel comparison?
I mean, I wonder if Clapper is sniffing glue. How in the world could he say that Watergate pales in comparison? Watergate involved the President of the United States, the top aides inside the White House, the Chief of Staff, Policy Director, a whole staff of people, and also the Attorney General of the United States, plus all the campaign people. I mean, it was a huge issue and involved official government employees. What we're talking about here is allegations, unproven. So far, a lot of smoke, they say, but no smoking gun. No credible evidence at all that the campaign had not coordination, but communication with an ambassador. I mean, this is absurd. I don't know even where he would come up with this, but I'll tell you where Clapper's going to have some challenges, as will Comey. If you've seen the revelation, the lawsuit that was filed this week, reported in Circa, there is now an explosive allegation. Dennis Montgomery, a former U.S. intelligence contractor, stole over 600 million documents of intelligence from the CIA and NSA, gave them back, but said it proved that in the Obama administration there was widespread surveillance and illegal spying on American citizens. Now that is a story that Congress ought to be pursuing.
Yeah, and there's a lot more we don't know about the story, but it sounds like, at least the first characterization I read of it, that he tried to go to somebody with the documents in a sort of a whistleblower capacity. I know we'll find out more about that. But also today we're going to hear from these 4 intel agency heads. Tomorrow we hear from Comey. Do you think the dust settles, the smoke clears? Do we get any solid answers on these accusations flying back and forth?
Well, I really think the burden is going to be on the people who are testifying, Comey, Rosenstein, and others, because if there was anything that was untoward, they should have had some reporting of it earlier. The fact that they didn't indicates that, they didn't find anything that was a true obstruction of justice. There was nothing there. If the president casually said, boy, I hope this thing with Flynn goes away, of course he might have said that. That's not criminal, nor is that an obstruction of justice. It doesn't cross that line until he issues an order, an ultimatum, or a quid pro quo, a this for that, none of which happened, none of which has even been alleged at this point. So if, in fact, they make that allegation, which I don't think anybody suspects they will, and early indications are that they most certainly will not, then this ought to be over. But let's see if the Democrats are able to pull the covers up on this one and put it to bed once and for all. My guess is they can't do it.
Okay, Governor, I want to ask you very quickly, we're almost out of time, about something that to me has been flying under the radar, the fact that the Senate Judiciary Chair, Chuck Grassley, has initiated an investigation into whether former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton tried to influence or shut down a corruption investigation into a foreign donor to the Clinton Foundation. I mean, he sent a letter to the State Department. I've heard nothing about this.
No, you haven't, because the mainstream media is not interested in alleged illegal activity. Now, this would be serious. If a person holding the office of Secretary of State used her position to shake down foreign governments in order to get favors for a donor, this would be a pretty big story. This should have been splashed on the front page. And imagine if Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of State, were engaged in something like this in the Trump administration. Do you think it would be ignored by the media? Doubtful.
Well, it's just in the very beginning stages, so we'll see what facts come from this inquiry by Senator Grassley. Governor, good to see you always. Thank you.
Thank you. 22 minutes from that hearing, Shannon. Meanwhile, this morning, lawmakers are revisiting yet again the Fast and Furious gun running scandal. This after a new bombshell report claims the former AG Eric Holder hid key information from investigators, the public, and even the family of Border Patrol agent Brian Terry. Terry was shot and killed by one of the guns used in the Fast and Furious operation. William LaJeunesse has seen the report live now to tell us what is significant about it. William, what did you find?
Well, you know, what was stunning, Bill, is what agents with the ATF and those attorneys with the DOJ in Washington, what they knew, when they knew it, and to what lengths the Obama administration went to hide the facts from the public and from the family of Agent Brian Terry. It's a 300-page report. It is by far the most compelling and illuminating. Why? Because it is based on those thousands of documents that President Obama claimed executive privilege. The public was never meant to see. Some of the conclusions include, and this is from the report, that ATF and DOJ staff displayed incompetence and arrogance, lying from day one, circling the wagons trying to discredit anyone who questioned their story. 2, stonewalling the Senate and House investigations. ATF agents and lawyers knew at the very beginning that the guns found at the scene of Brian's death belonged to them, and they failed and they denied it for years, including lying to the Terry family at least 4 times to Josie's face, Brian's mother, about where those guns really came from. And finally, that ATF and DOJ refused to tell the Border Patrol about this operation. If the Border Patrol knew that the U.S. was arming the cartels, they would not have sent these agents out there with beanbags. In fact, there's an email exchange in October 2010, 2 months before Brian was killed. This is from an attorney, Chief of Deputy Attorney General Jason Weinstein in Washington, saying it is a tricky case, given the number of guns that have that were involved here. And the reply is that, hey, this is by another attorney in the criminal division. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised about the number of guns that are being walked to Mexico. Bill?
Thank you, William. More on this coming up, certainly. Interesting report. William Lajeunesse, thanks. They're live in L.A. all these years later, still ongoing, so we'll let you know what you need to know based on when we get it.
Yeah, the family deserves answers. His parents do. In the meantime, we are awaiting the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing on Capitol Hill starting at the top of the hour. We're going to take you there live when it begins.
Also, breaking news on the fight to get a health care bill through Congress. President Trump heading to Cincinnati, Ohio today. Right when he touches down, we're told he will address the latest news on all those efforts. Will they get it done by the end of this summer?
We're working very hard on massive tax cuts, and we're working very, very hard on the health care. And I think we're going to have some very pleasant surprises for a lot of people.
The clock is ticking down toward the start of a big hearing on Capitol Hill. The Senate Intelligence Committee will hear from 4 top Trump administration officials coming up at the top of the hour. There is going to be plenty to watch for: clues about the Russia investigation, any comments about fired FBI Director James Comey, and it's also going to be Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein's first testimony since his decision to name special counsel. We're going to take you there live when it all begins at the top of the hour.
If Congress doesn't act to save Americans from this Democrat-inflicted catastrophe, next year is only going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. Although I don't know how it can get worse than 203%, but I'm sure the Democrats will find a way.
From President Trump just yesterday, he will make that message clear yet again today in Cincinnati, just a day after Anthem Insurance announced they will pull out of Obamacare in Ohio. The president tweeting this, getting ready to leave for Cincinnati in the great state of Ohio, all caps, to meet with Obamacare victims and talk health care and also infrastructure. Jonah Goldberg's here now, senior editor, National Review, and a Fox News contributor. And Jonah, good day to you. A lot to get to now. Let's cover it all in 4 minutes, okay?
Okay.
Did the meeting at the White House move the meter on this topic?
That remains to be seen. Look, I mean, I think Donald Trump was exactly right there. You know, Donald Trump hasn't gotten a lot of his agenda through, but he at least has stuff he can point to. He's got executive orders. He's repealed a lot of the sort of unilateral stuff that Obama did. What has Congress done? And Congress has to run for re-election in 2018 on something. And so they really need to sort of double down and figure out a way to do something on health care, something on taxes, or the Republican majority is going to be, in real trouble.
That's a great point. Let me come back to that. There was a piece in the Wall Street Journal 3 weeks ago that is very relevant on that point you just made. But hang off on that a second here. Okay. This major insurer in Ohio to pull out, I mean, I think that leaves 20 of 88 counties with no insurance to go to or turn to. Mark Meadows, Freedom Caucus, said this: we believe that we need to stay through August to get through tax reform and get our appropriations done. That would mean you blow off the August recess. Do you see any Congress taking that action?
Well, Bill, you know, you've been a reporter for a long time. Washington, D.C. in August is about the 7th plane of hell, and everyone wants to get out of here. But that said, there's only about 30 days left to this summer in terms of legislative days before the August recess. They want to do health care, tax reform. They got some debt limit stuff. They got, there's a lot of big ticket items coming. And then once you get into 2018, there's not a lot of time or maneuverability because it's an election year. If they have to cancel an August recess, I think they have no choice but to do so if that's the only way to get this stuff through.
My sense is for those who voted for this Republican majority and voted for Donald Trump, they'd vote for that. They'd like to see them get this matter done if you do not move the meter, to borrow another phrase for the second time, through the month of June. Now, you brought up a great point about the Republican majority. 3 weeks ago, Wall Street Journal concluded the following way. No one knows how the various Trump investigations will play out, but Republicans can adapt and criticize or defend as new facts arise. Whatever happens, they'll be in a stronger position if they do not squander their current majorities as Democrats hope they will. Jonah, therein lies the game in your town today.
No, I think that's exactly right. Look, Republicans haven't been in power for a very long time. They haven't. A lot of them have forgotten or never knew how to legislate. And one of my hopes, criticisms aside of Donald Trump, one of my hopes is whoever was president, that the Republicans would get back to the sort of proper constitutional structure, which says that the Congress is the first branch of government. They should be churning out legislation regardless of what Donald Trump is tweeting, regardless of what Donald Trump is doing. But instead, because of about 60 years of inertia, this city is designed to follow the president's lead. And it's very difficult for these guys to figure out how to set out their own path. But if they don't figure out how to get their agenda, the agenda that got them elected, often by wider margins than Donald Trump got, they're going to lose in a landslide like in 2006. And it is going to be the end of any hope of any serious conservative agenda getting accomplished.
Great point. 7th plane of hell, was that?
Well, they're 9 planes.
I see.
Newark, New Jersey is, never mind, I won't get into it.
Don't get burned there. See you, Jonah. Jonah Goldberg there in Washington. Thank you. Shannon.
Can confirm re-August in Washington. Okay, President Trump announcing his intention to nominate Chris Wray as the replacement for James Comey as FBI director. The president, as you just heard, will be on the road in Ohio today. A live report in minutes.
Also, we are only moments away from the beginning of the Senate hearing that will feature top intelligence officials as well as the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. All those questions, the testimony, the opening statements, you will see them when they start 10 minutes from now.